Hello, so this is structural formulas, and this is a way of showing the way atoms are arranged in a molecule. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to ask myself a question, like how would I write this one? And a good way for you to learn this would be every time I ask a question, stop the video and try it yourself. And then start it again, and you can see how I do it, and you can check the way you did it against the way I do it and see if you're right. If you're really struggling, then watch it once all the way through and then try that, and that'll be a really good way of revising it. So, my first question will be to draw the structural formula of butane. And again, I'm going to draw the hydrogens as lines because I'm lazy, but in an exam you need to draw the hydrogens as a H or you'll lose a mark. Okay, I'm not going to do that. So my first question, to draw the structural formula of butane. I'm going to stop tape now. And here's how I do it. First of all, you take the first carbon, and it doesn't matter which end you start from. It makes sense to me to start from the left-hand side, but it doesn't really make a difference. And you write down that first carbon, C. I then look at everything bonded to that first carbon. 1, 2, 3 hydrogens. And I write that down next to that carbon. I then move on to my next carbon and write that down, and write down everything bonded to that. And so on. So a carbon with 2 hydrogens, and then a carbon with 3 hydrogens. And this shows us the way the atoms are arranged in my formula. It's not quite as obvious as a displayed formula, but it's a little bit less time consuming. Okay, so that's how I would write down the structural formula of butane. There's lots of extra little things we can add on to this, and we need to know how to write those as well. So my second question is, how would I write down the structural formula of chlorobutane? And here's how I'd answer it. Again, I write down the carbon, and that's got 3 hydrogens attached to it. I then write down my second carbon, and that's got 1 hydrogen attached to it, and a Cl. So I just write that down next to it. I then got my C with 2 H's, and my C with 3 H's. So if you've got a halogenoalkane, you just write it down next to your H's, in front, behind, whichever way you look at it, of the carbon it's attached to. Okay? What about if I had a double bond? So because carbon can only make 4 bonds, I had to rub out 2 of those hydrogens, and I've put a double bond there. This is well easy. Again, we've got our carbon, stick our 2 H's on, and then to show you've got a double bond, you just draw in the double bond. So it really couldn't be simpler. I've then got a carbon with 1 hydrogen, and this is a spot where loads of people go wrong, because what they do is when they're drawing this out, they leave this hydrogen on. You're so used to going yep, you forget you've now given 5 bonds to this carbon. So don't forget, if you've got a double bond, check the amount of hydrogens. So that's CH, we're then going to have CH2 and CH3 at the end. The double bonds are well easy, you just draw the double bond in. We've also got certain functional groups. So one functional group you could have is an alcohol. So I could have an OH at the end here. And don't forget, if it's displayed formula, you need to draw the bond between the O and the H. So the structural formula, here's how I'd answer this one. I've got my C, H3, CH2, 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 but now I've got OH on the end, so I just write OH on the end. Simple as that. Okay? If it was in the middle of the chain, I'd just write that in the middle of the chain. That's simple. We've also got carboxylic acids, which you need to know how to do, and the functional group for carboxylic acid is an OH and a double bond oxygen. So here's how I do that. Again, CH3, CH2, CH2, and then I've got COOH. So I just write it down as COOH. And that shows us I've got a C double bonded to an oxygen with an OH as well. It's as simple as that. The harder thing to do is to be able to talk about side chains. That's where people mostly mess these up. So let's go through a few different examples of side chains.